Not letting me sort out my lighting yet.
You're not
Throw me under the bus.
Time's up. I was thinking of pressing record before we joined the call. So then basically you would jump on while I'm also faffing around with this green light, blue light, orange light, red light thing that I've got.
Funny you're thinking that, because I was thinking that before I jumped on. I was like, it would be really funny if we just hit record and then just see how we start. So it's funny.
But I quite like this like pink and green thing that I've got going on here. So if you're not watching, online, then come over to YouTube, because I'm trying to basically I want a pink and green vibe, but it's not happening. Probably because it's a little bit too light here. If I do this, I'll probably end up disappearing now, will I? Oh no, I'm still here. Good. Well, I've got pink and green.
Side.
Yeah, something to pull the greenery out of my eyes. So
it's like Two-Face, Hulk edition.
The real life Two-Face. So, what's your hot take today? I'm going to be honest.
I had multiple topics.
Oh, go on.
Coming on.
Go on.
But
okay,
then, since you hit record, I forgot them all.
No. I was going to be like, the one thing that we can't forget, and forgive me if it's echoey in here. I think let me just turn on hopefully we'll reduce the echo. The one thing I keep forgetting to do is we now want anonymous feedback, anonymous positive feedback. So at the end of this podcast, or even halfway through the podcast, or even now, there'll be a link to something called Airtable, which is just going to be a form. You will be able to anonymously submit feedback. Of course, we don't know where you're listening. We're not tracking you yet. So, of course, it's all going to be anonymous. And what we'd like to know is basically...
What you should have said is, we're not tracking you yet, and then just inserted a name to freak out that one person.
Yeah, we're not tracking you yet, John. If I say generic names, then it might be okay. So basically, two things we'd like to know. One, what are we doing well? And two, what could we do better? So that's typically a good way to get...
Number 3 was going to be, what topics do you want us to talk about?
Well, yeah, that's basically number 2. As in, number 2 is, it could be better if you talk about XYZ topics, right? So one thing you kind of like, and one thing that we can do next. And then it's not so bad, because then it's not just some anonymous kind of like entries of just, hey, I really hate it the way you say this word, or I really dislike it when you, don't give exact, specifications in the stories or whatever. Takes. Okay, cool, go on. Cool, I filled the air, so we didn't have any dead air.
Dead air.
Okay, go for it.
One of my hot takes is, I have not reviewed the last podcast, so I don't know if I'm wearing exactly the same thing. Which I thought, imagine if we record this every week, which roughly we're doing at the moment, and then we cycle through our clothes and then just wear the same thing. We'd look like the most blandest people just cycling through our clothes through the week that no one can see.
Well, they definitely know that from my perspective, it's probably that we've got dark T-shirts or Wales tops. That's and hats. So those are the kind of like, that's basically all we own. Yeah, we have hats, dark T-shirts, and the occasional Wales top.
And no trousers.
Yeah, that's why we don't film film below the waist. Even in that university one was not filmed below the waist, so you never know.
Can't remember what one thing.
One thing that we
is
go on.
Behind the laptop screen is my iPad playing a World Cup game, so then we can add it in the title, that we can add Morocco versus Spain in extra time at 30 minutes.
What, in the title of the YouTube video, so then they'll come back and watch us talking. Yeah. Like that'll be a way that we dedupe the...
We're talking during the match, so now I've said all that, then we can just say da-da-da-da-da, done. And then they're stuck in a loop now.
Yeah, so basically they'll come over to us and watch us, but like retrospectively speaking. So over the next kind of couple of days when they try and watch the highlights from that match, our video will come up with two guys supposedly in football top kind of like vibes, potentially giving some critique on the football that they've been watching.
Morocco is wearing red and they've got green shorts, so you're covering the green on the face and I'm covering the red.
Yeah, it reminds me of you can't actually sometimes because of licensing you can't publish like football or whatever on TV, on YouTube, sorry. So what they do is have commentators, and they're filming the commentators doing it. Similar with Formula One, right? You can't publish Formula One. You can't just like rip it and stream your laptop onto YouTube. So they have the data visualization of all the cars going around, and then they have someone narrating it. And it takes me back to the football one. I love it when they have super passionate fans like narrating a game, because I think that in itself becomes more entertaining than the football sometimes. I think that's my hot take.
Yeah.
At some point we'll have to do a reaction video. Yeah, live reaction video.
We're doing it now. Get on the game in your
yeah, we're going to do a live reaction of the World Cup football game. So.
2 teams that we probably know 5 players from.
So one thing that I haven't shared with the podcast or the pod, one thing that I haven't shared with you guys is, Kim and my wife is a music artist potentially, and if you don't, then she is. And
she's a potential music artist.
No, she isn't a factual music artist.
I feel like we need an alert that we're Welsh just to show that.
Yeah, every time we say something stupid,
it's the sound of grammar. It's the sound of grammar.
So basically,
as I'll do.
Yeah, that's also probably trying to rap fail. So Kimma is in the World Cup. Her music has been featured in the World Cup. In the exhibition, for each country has a kind of a showcase, as it were. So the Welsh government weren't allowed to do their own showcase because the UK government were like, no, we've got this campaign, we've got this great campaign, this great brand stuff, and we want to put England and Wales underneath that umbrella. So basically, the Welsh government put Kim's name forward, and she got selected to represent music. And that meant that 3 of her tracks get played, and it's in this garden. So it's called Garden of Great or something like that for Great Britain. And there are stepping stones. So if you step on these stepping stones, there's 3 of them. As you step on one of them, it starts to play track number 1. If you step on the second one, track number 2. And they're basically dotted around the garden. There's some other celebs in there too. And one of the celebs is like from the British Bake Off, but I don't recall her name right now. And then there's a famous chef and all sorts of stuff. So it's about showcasing the creativity, which is cool. And then she got some press associated with it as well, which is cool because, again, it's showcasing Wales's kind of like talent, as it were.
Do they monitor how many people stood on whatever stepping stone you're on and for how long at all? Because that would be quite.
That would be actually super interesting. I probably
and if they trip up on your one, do they sue you?
No, there's only 3 steps. There's only. It's just the music part has been integrated by these stepping stones. And that's the music element inside this garden, because then there's this these flowers have been like hand selected by somebody famous, and then they've been scented by somebody famous or something like that. So yeah, it's like a creative hot pot. Yeah. So someone's gone farting on these flowers, and that's what scented these flowers
up and down their armpit.
Well, yeah, the heat out there is probably gonna make it smell a little bit stronger as well. So yeah, anyway, we're talking about the World Cup football stuff and watching it and how you're going to live commentate, hopefully, unless it's just going to be dead air on this stuff.
Well, it's gone to adverts, so it's very hard to live commentate a football match. It's gone to adverts. It is compare the market trailer at the moment.
Hey, well, they need to pay for us to get featured in this. We can't be promoting stuff for free.
I'll give him the free one because he's got a Welsh accent. So
that's another thing we've done. We've not actually done a Welsh podcast yet, and I'm really, really enjoying the.
Did you notice the short today, though?
Oh no, I've not watched it yet.
No.
So what's this short?
Coming soon. Getting a drum roll by that.
Oh, is it?
2 audience members. Both speak English.
They're like, Welsh. Turn off. We just had zero viewers now.
We might need to create a separate podcast with our Welsh version.
I wonder whether or not we can use, like just a little bit of Welsh every now and again to kind of like, somebody will put up with it for 20 seconds or whatever to kind of like, that's fine because it's showcasing just the breadth of talent or lack of talent that you and I have.
Talk about the Welsh language. Apparently it's dipped in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I was seeing that. I wonder whether or not specifically it's because people are less confident in their Welsh.
It was in between the
what does that mean, right?
of 0 and 15 apparently, and I think it was mainly South Wales that got the bigger hit. So I'm assuming it's like, well, in the last 5 years, COVID's pretty much been 2.5 of them. So
and it's wiped out all the social interactions that you would have had as a child. So there's like COVID babies in there. Or lockdown babies, sorry.
There's not that much, or that I've come across, decent Welsh content. Like, it's cool that Gogglebox now S4C are doing in Welsh. And I follow some of the Welsh football guys talking about football, but it's like there's a niche in the market.
So I've got a hot take on this. Basically, the Welsh government funded this cultural platform to showcase the cultural expanse or like richness of Wales in a kind of Welsh Netflix, Welsh YouTube type thing called AM, right? AM. And I'm like, who managed to convince somebody in the Welsh government to do that, because it aligns with Cymru 2020 goals of like having 1 million speakers in Welsh. And also, very interestingly, governments that put like, we're going to have 1 million speakers by 2050. Well, that government probably isn't going to be sticking around till 2050. So it's an easy way to have like lower, slower growth, which is interesting. And really what you should do is like, we, as our government are in play right now, we're going to make the goal of X number of people in our government and our control. Because the 2050, you have no control over who's in government there. So how do you know if that's going to be a thing or not? But that's a side point. But yeah, the Welsh government have funded this AM platform, and it's kind of like trying to draw attention. So I watched a bunch of listened to a bunch of interviews, lol, and it's about drawing attention, some of the kind of the that audience demographic, which is the kind of the 16 to 24s kind of the demographic of youngsters, showcasing the breadth soon. Of. Is it? Is it going to go down next time?
So you'll have to talk, and then I'll say goal or miss in between, and see if you can keep your rhythm.
This is kind of like the like I said in the last podcast, or one of the ones with the All Blacks, where they basically do presentations and they get like rugby balls thrown at them. Goal for who though?
Well, you got to guess.
I'm assuming it was Morocco.
Yeah.
What a good guess! So it's 1-0 to Morocco. First. Who are they playing?
Spain.
Spain.
Oh,
they've
awesome. Done really well. So
I've been rooting for
African team to the last 8.
Oh, that would be really cool. Yeah, because Ghana's going to be playing soon as well, aren't they? Are Ghana going to be playing soon? Because Senegal have been knocked out. Or did Ghana get knocked out from France?
They got knocked out.
Or did they just miss the groups?
They got knocked out by someone.
Oh, shame. Because it was Ghana, Senegal, and Morocco. Yeah.
This is a great football podcast, Dan.
Yeah. Well, the Moroccan fans have like turned off now. So
Ghana came in last because in the Portugal, South Korea, Uruguay, Ghana, because it's a fighting match in the last game.
So they just lost out.
Ghana didn't win because they would have gone through if they beat, I think, Uruguay. I think they drew or something.
Yeah, it was a shame because they were on fire. I'm really liking Japan. I was gutted that Japan. 2-0?
The guy hit the post. Spain hit the post.
All right, so it's 1-0 to Morocco.
Game.
All right, coming back to my story, I have no idea where I finished my story. What was I saying? Yeah, Welsh government have funded this platform to be the next Netflix because
You're just
basically
speed up your chat every time you forget.
It'll be like an elevator pitch. Because basically, this company that have pitched the idea to the Welsh government, again, how do you pitch an idea to the Welsh government and get funding for it? Is basically a music distributor. So they're focusing on videos and video content and have done this platform. And I'm like, why create a platform to bring people's attention away from what they're already doing? Again,
Goal.
Align. Spain 1-1.
No, Morocco 2-0.
Morocco 2-0. Oh, awesome! This is exciting.
Spain haven't had their second shot yet.
Wait. Is this penalties?
Yeah.
I thought this was like the normal game. Oh, okay.
No,
in this case, I'm going to have to speak very fast. So, Welsh Netflix, it doesn't work because basically we're watching Netflix, right? We're watching Netflix. So why don't you just create stuff to be on Netflix? Create Welsh content be on Netflix. Create
Red Notice. That's Welsh subtitles, isn't it? It's the first Welsh subtitled item because Ryan Reynolds is in it, and he actually was basically trying to promote like Wrexham and his link up with there. And I'm pretty sure he might even reference Wrexham. Oh,
And I think
save! Spain didn't score. It's a good save.
Oh,
by
that's
Morocco.
interesting.
Now it's definitely 2-0.
The penalties
But
yesterday were
also,
really tough as well.
Going back to talking about stuff and things in Wales and hit the other partner. I'll be so impressed if people could keep up with this. This is probably for the only ADHD brain /2X Londoners in the world that will keep up with us. Everyone else will drop off by now.
Yeah.
The two owners, Ryan Reynolds, did it in Red Notice, Welsh language to promote. Amazing. Rob McElhenney, the second owner, he's created an Apple TV series called Mythic Quest, and he actually has the Wrexham logo on a shield. I don't know if you've spotted that
in
yet.
Mythic Quest. No, I've not spotted that.
But yeah,
that's clever.
In the local area and language. Oh, Morocco,
and I think
the third penalty.
I'm going to speak through this one.
Spain. Yeah,
these goalies are going good. Like the who was it yesterday? Who were playing Japan yesterday?
I forgot. Brazil? No.
Why have I forgotten who it was?
It was Japan, Croatia.
Croatia, yeah. The Croatian goalkeeper was amazing. He saved 3 penalties. So anyway,
to be fair, those penalties were pretty poor, but yeah.
Yeah, they were.
Now we can just put that in the link. Talk about football about Japan.
Penalty review. So I'm like, why spend a bunch of money creating a new system when really they're already content creators? There's great Welsh TikTokers that are creating Welsh content on TikTok. And I'm like, why don't you just give money to content creators to create content on platform?
Another one.
Another save. On platforms that already exist rather than trying to create your own platform. Because it would just be better impact, right? Because then you're not having to force yourself into somebody's day-to-day kind of like lifestyle, right? In the sense of like, we're not going to create a podcast and have it like on a separate platform that nobody knows about. Like, we're going to basically put it on Spotify. We're going to put it on YouTube and just like be where all the eyes are already, you know?
Because even I mentioned to you, I was like, we should have created merch for the Gogglebox people just to send them free merch to see if our stuff comes online.
We should do that. We should do that. Send
if someone hasn't already.
Yeah, we should
if you're listening.
Send them tithe stuff here. Basically, if we put some Ryland Consulting tops together, that actually be very clever. I really like the Tide and the grandson. I think that dynamic is really funny. And then the 3 Welsh guys, the 3 brothers,
Morocco.
I think they're particularly funny.
Cheeky one down the middle. Morocco scored. So I think they won. Yeah, Morocco's won. Amazing.
Oh, wait, so they've kicked out Spain. That's insane.
Yeah, that's insane.
Oh, you heard it here first.
So now it's the first African team into the final 8 in the whole World Cup, I think.
Yeah, because Senegal got kicked out. Senegal. Yeah, they got kicked out and Ghana's out.
Fascinating. I've got a hot take when it comes to penalty shootouts on ITV. They don't have how many shots have been had or lost on the build-up of people walking to and from the penalty.
So you can't
They'll
really
have
remember.
It afterwards as a snap.
Oh, right.
But they don't know that we've all got TikTok brains that last like 10 seconds. That it's like
it needs it
gone.
Consistently
it
there.
It needs to be consistent. So ITV, if you're listening, fix it.
Sort it out.
By the time they listen in the World Cup 2020, 2050 or whatever, they might took our information from a designer's point of view.
You know, they have changed the way that offside rules have been mentioned because they were complaining like Gary Neville was saying like, you need to give us the context of like, give us the shot, then go into like, show us the line, then go into the animation of the close-up animation and then come back to the shot. And basically they've done that now because what they were doing before is like just switching to the here's his finger, it's over the line kind of thing in the 3D virtual thing, rather than giving the context of where that person was and where the cross was at that time. Yeah. So, they are adapting it as things are going along, which is good.
Morocco iteration is celebrating a lot, hugging the keeper a lot. But there's a lot of crying fans and teammates of Spain, probably because they were one of favourites as well. Probably in this game, they were favourites to win.
Yeah, 100%. I think Brazil, broadly speaking, have not been as good in the group stages. It feels like their hype hasn't been there. similar to kind of like Germany and stuff, right? Like the hype's not there. But then yesterday, it feels like they've turned up again. Although I obviously know they won their group. They were top of their group, right? But it feels like they've come out the woodwork a little bit more now.
They've won every game.
Which is maybe it's just because there's a little bit like, less polished.
Game?
Yeah, go on.
Ball possession, 77% by Spain. 13 shots, only 1 on target.
Wow.
Morocco had 23%, hardly anything, so basically defending the whole game. 6 shots, so half as many, but 2 on target. Double the amount on target. So basically they weren't clinical.
That's super interesting because, again, like, this is why it's fascinating with penalties. You could literally play a one-sided game and be the person that's being absolutely beaten up and then win on penalties.
Yeah,
which is like
that's the
kind of cool.
Tournament football.
Yeah, I don't mind that because it gives other people a chance, right? Like it makes it more fascinating and more like historic rather than the same teams winning all the time. But I also think that it is good for the same teams to be winning because that just shows like consecutive excellence, which in itself is a skill to have. Because like winning 1, cool, anybody can win 1, but can you win 2? Can you win 3? And like the consecutive excellence is like I think also is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my story. Basically, you know, you want to go where people's eyeballs are. Another thing, if you run a product, if you're selling a product, people on Amazon are already searching for that product, or people on eBay are already searching for that product. So rather than creating your own Shopify account and trying to drag the attention over, you might as well just turn up in Amazon or turn up in eBay. It obviously takes more of a cut. But that's like a good like starting point until you get your regular customers. And then you start drawing them to your own platform. But I recognize you'll make a little bit less profit to begin with, but you're aligning with eyeballs that are already there looking for those things already. Obviously, you can pay a bunch of money for ads and things like that, but it's a bit harder because they're not in the frame of mind. If they're on Facebook, they're not necessarily looking for a product while they're on Facebook. But if they're searching in Amazon, they're probably looking for that product. So it's about aligning with it. So.
I have no idea what we're going to call this podcast.
This will be like when football interrupts. You know what's going to happen as well? As soon as we stop, it'll be like, you'll remember everything you wanted to say. And also, it'll be like, oh, we should have said this, or like remembering
to be fair,
things.
I remember the ITV thing, the wearing clothes that might be the same thing on every thing.
Episode.
I don't know what is the other thing. I would have probably kicked off more the fact that we've got a brand new roof that cost an arm and a leg, but actually it looks quite good now. So then my everything is settled.
Good.
My frustrations, but no.
Yeah, nothing like a renovation or not even a renovation.
But to be fair,
fixing a problem on your roof.
I have a lot more compassion, sympathy, understanding for anyone that lives on a building site that you're paying for. Because I've lived on a building site that I've rented that you sort of know it's someone else's issue. But when you're living at your own home, that it feels like someone's attacking your house, it can be very personal that you sort of got to go, oh, I didn't realize this is how my emotions and thoughts were kicking off, hearing loads of banging and knowing that basically we don't have a roof, that if it randomly, for some reason, absolutely lashes it down, it'll just soak through the whole house. But it's so interesting how you can have these more emotions, particularly when you own a house, because it feels like your own kid that you're just like ripping it off. But then when it's brand new, you're like, oh, this is amazing. But just that in-between process of, you know, the work needs to be done, but then it's get ripped apart and it's not tidy. And then when it's done, you're like, okay, I could just about see the other end. And then when it's tidy, it's like, okay, I understand it now. So yeah,
I think it's like at least they're outside on scaffolding. With us, it's like they're in the house, so there's noises in the house. There's like dudes using your toilet, which is fine, but also like when you want to go to the toilet, oh, someone's in there. Hang on, oh, it's a builder. It's that kind of thing. That's what I remember.
Yeah. But one thing I have noticed
around that
is like when you've got a story about a builder or a car breaking down or something. This is another hot take. Is you find out everyone that's had an issue with their roof, or let's say like our car broke down recently with the literally forgotten what it was called. the alternator, everyone that we mentioned that to randomly has a story of, oh, I remember when my alternator broke down whilst I was on the motorway and had to get picked up. So it's fascinating.
Stories of trauma.
Open up the door of going, this is what's going on in my life. Actually, people naturally connect and link to that. And then you find out all their stories about all their difficulties with alternators or roofers or noises or building sites. So it is really interesting. So maybe the hot take is just open up a little. You don't know what goss you'll find out.
Yeah, it reminds me of like, basically you've got to go first, right? In the sense of the any sort of understanding or like framework or what's the word, boundaries. Boundaries are set by like you kind of like making them out to be. So if you were like, hey, we're having a really awful time because we've got builders like fixing our roof and it's costing an arm and a leg, whatever, then people will be able to relate to it. And then hopefully in them sharing a story, it means that they do relate. It's a clear way of showing empathy is basically reciting a story, a similar story back kind of thing, right? So that's like one basic way of kind of like showing some empathy to the situation. But yeah, it's fascinating. We also had another bit of feedback about us being more vulnerable. And I guess in some ways it's important for us not to really have things polished. So you can kind of, as I've said before, I don't want to be well known. I want to be known well. So to be known well, you have to be vulnerable and share stuff and just figure out who the right people are to share with, really. Like, I can't quite, also like in the moment, you literally forget everything that you're currently working on or whatever. But the one thing that's like problematic right now is because you've moved houses and stuff. We're not on the electoral roll, and that screws over anytime you want to get a mortgage. So that's the one problem with us. So we're in limbo, waiting to be on the electoral roll while we're also paying high rates. Yeah, but annoyingly, October and November, they don't add anybody. So even though you've submitted, they don't add anybody in either October or November or whatever. But they just say, hey, you're going to be added 1st of December. So on the 1st of December, which obviously is already passed, we are now on the electoral roll. But the time it takes to then shove that through all the credit rating or the credit scores, is like a long time. So then, banks don't want to loan to us because they don't think we exist somewhere, somehow, even though like we've existed this entire time in these places over here. It's just more recently because we did more traveling and stuff. So, that's the thing that's screwing us over from being able to remortgage properly. So did you pull off being on the electoral roll when you weren't in your old property out of interest? No, I think what happens is maybe when the tenant adds themselves onto the electoral roll, it probably takes us off because that address is associated with that person. Maybe they have to choose to do that. Because you reminded me when I moved into our house, a random person was added on. So now I was like, that person doesn't live here, but these two do. Yeah, exactly. So maybe you get like a review every year. That. Yeah. So it's just because you kind of like forget about it. With all the things you have to switch over, like all the addresses that you have to switch over, electoral roll is one of those things you kind of forget about because it only comes around every so often. And it's something that you're not really chased for unless you've moved into a new building and then they're like, hey, have you registered to vote and that kind of stuff. But if you're in an existing building that, has people coming and going, then they don't know that it's turning over. I do think there should be a new system for like addresses. I sort of feel like you need an ID, an address linked to the ID, but then it'll always send it to your ID and then somehow would scan something to know what address it is. So then you can constantly switch it in and out your address, but then you'll constantly have your ID. Because for people it's like a PO box. I'm trying to basically get a PO box so then I can avoid this kind of thing from happening. I can't do it on, I won't be able to do it on everything, I don't think. But with most things, like most general letters and stuff, you kind of want it to go to PO boxes or something if they take that, because then the PO box can scan letters and then just send it to you, or they can redirect parcels and stuff. So
okay, that's interesting.
But they're also doing it with like, virtual cards. They do it with virtual cards, kind of, as in like you have a card and then you burn the card, so then it doesn't make you use it. And they're starting to use it with emails. I'm not sure if you've seen when Apple, you want to add in an email and they kind of give you like a ghost email address, which I think is quite cool as well. So then you protect yourself. I think that's that's a good idea. Just give like a ghost address that basically can dynamically be forwarded anywhere, which is essentially a PO box. But if the PO box had like a better address, like a building address rather than a PO box address, right? So then at least it had a street name and a number, and it would feel a bit better. But those kind of things do exist. I was wondering if basically that could be a business. If you had a lot of like space and you didn't mind letters being attributed to your house and you like organizing letters, then you just provide a PO box offering where anybody could sign up.
Sunny side of Philadelphia, where one of them works in the
the letters room.
Letter room, yeah.
He gets mixed up with the letters.
Where he literally throws some of them back into the mail to give him more time, and throws some of them in the bin, and then just delivers some of them.
And that's not what we would do, but yeah, 100%. Yeah, if you're getting like that was only like internal mail of like an office, wasn't it? Like one office. But yeah, I definitely think if you had a space, you'd basically be scanning people's mail and then sending it to them, and then if they want it capped or redirected or whatever. So it'd be very manual, but it'd be like a decent physical reason to have a building with some pigeonholes, as they call them, or whatever. So, but
and on that note,
the football. There's more football on now, right? Later.
7.
7. And on that
6
note,
at the moment. Enjoy
come back
Portugal,
next week
Switzerland.
to our next football review. Enjoy Portugal, Switzerland. Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.